Many lives, many masters, unlocking soul imprints and the wisdom of patience. Hello everyone, and welcome back to today's episode. In our previous episode, we talked about how Catherine, while under hypnosis, spoke words far beyond her conscious knowledge, wisdom from the masters that read almost like poetry. A week later, when Catherine returned to my clinic, I played the tape recorded from that session for her. After all, those profound insights about the soul's intermediate state had come directly from her own mouth. Unexpectedly, Catherine had little interest in listening to it. She was feeling so much healthier and happier than before that she no longer needed those tapes for comfort. On top of that, hearing her own faint, whispering voice felt somewhat eerie and uncomfortable. After listening for just a few minutes, she asked me to turn it off. In the brief silence that followed, that line from the master echoed in my mind once more. This is for you, not for her. At that time, I had no idea how long this therapy would need to continue. Although she still held a slight fear of enclosed spaces, ere her relationship with Stuart remained on-off, her progress was remarkable. For months, we had completely abandoned traditional psychoanalysis, spending just a few minutes chatting at the start of each session before moving straight into hypnotic regression. The terror and panic attacks that once plagued her had vanished entirely. She no longer feared death, nor did she fear losing control. Under ordinary circumstances, a patient with symptoms as severe as Catherine's would be prescribed high doses of sedatives and antidepressants by a traditional psychiatrist, alongside intensive psychotherapy and group sessions. Many psychiatrists even believe such symptoms stem from a biological basis, a deficiency in specific brain chemicals. Yet looking at Catherine recovering miraculously after months without medication, traditional therapy, or group sessions was deeply gratifying. She wasn't merely suppressing her symptoms, the symptoms were completely gone. First memory, despair, and suffocation in a sealed cave. Soon, as she entered a deep state of hypnosis, her faint whisper began once again. This time, she found herself inside a building with a domed ceiling decorated with blue and gold patterns, housing numerous stone statues, including a large, sinister-looking winged, golden figure at one end of the room. She was surrounded by others wearing filthy, ragged robes. Their skin was peeling severely. These were lepers, isolated and banished from their village. The room had no ventilation, and the air was scorching hot and dry. They were forbidden to return home and had to survive by hunting wild animals, waiting in despair to die. I guided her forward in time to the day of her death. She was confined inside a dark, sweltering cave, paralyzed and unable to move half an inch. The entrance had been sealed off from the outside with stones. Plunged into terror, misery, and acute air deprivation, she drew her final breath alone in the silent darkness. Witnessing this, everything suddenly clicked. Her lifelong, intense fear of enclosed spaces, rooted directly in the traumatic memory of being sealed alive in that suffocating cave. Second memory, Ancient Greece 3. 500 years ago, and a reunion. Following her death, she felt her body become weightless as she floated up into a bright, comforting space. Yet she didn't remain there long, stating with surprise, "I'm going down fast. I'm going into the body again." This time, she landed in ancient Greece, 3500 years ago. It was a festive day. People wore strange masks on stage, performing as mythical creatures and deities. She had reddish-brown hair tied in braids and was pregnant. When I asked whom she saw around her, she said she saw me in that lifetime. 3500 years ago, I was her uncle, named Diogenes. In that life, I was an elderly, wise teacher instructing people in geometry, maps, symbols, and geography. She held deep respect and affection for her uncle. As the regression unfolded, she experienced the intense pain of giving birth to a daughter, the grief of losing her father, and a deep emotional attachment to her aging uncle. When that life ended, she entered the intermediate stage once more. I waited quietly for the spiritual masters to speak, but this time she did not reach that specific plane. A physician's rational reflection: is reincarnation real? 3 weeks passed before our next session. While lying on a tropical beach during my vacation, I finally had the time and space to reflect deeply on everything happening with Catherine. As a psychiatrist trained strictly on scientific methodology, having taught at 4 major medical schools and treated countless cases of mental illness across clinics and psychiatric emergency rooms, I knew the full spectrum of auditory and visual hallucinations, schizophrenic delusions, hysteria, and substance-induced state. Stripping away all professional bias, reincarnation stood out as the most logical and compelling explanation. Third memory: ancient Egyptian fear and the master's lesson on patience. Upon returning from vacation, Catherine quickly re-entered a hypnotic trance during our session. In this life, she worked in ancient Egypt sealing oil jars. She described golden bird pendants, marble containers, and white jars used to store ointments for the deceased. Yet this life, too, was filled with hardship. A waterborne plague claimed the lives of her father and brother while leaving her gravely ill. When I asked what trauma this life had left in her current existence, she whispered softly, "Religion." The religion back then was a religion of fear. There were so many gods, so much fear. She recalled statues of a jackal, Osiris, and Hathor. As she passed through the death of that lifetime and moved toward a warm light, her head suddenly turned from side to side, and her voice grew stronger. "I feel ... someone is talking to me. What are they saying?"